Welcome to Ben Samlak TV. Ben Samlak here. Getting off on the spiritual topics for now. I'm getting to the, this channel is body, soul, and spirit. So I have another video on related more to the body, the health of people, and natural childbirth. And I wish my wife could have been with me on this one. She's the one who did the natural childbirths too. And I wanted to give a video on this because there's not many natural childbirths going on these days. And I think there's a reason for that. Doing a natural childbirth, if you're thinking you want to do that and you're interested, that's why you're watching this video, I want you to know it's like preparing for a marathon, okay? If you think you're going to go in and just see what happens and go to Lamaze class that the hospital gives you and you're going to be ready for a natural childbirth, I'm sorry to tell you that's not going to happen, okay? Most likely, sorry to say. You could probably go run a marathon with just a little practice and get through it if you're lucky, but it's going to be painful and you're going to pay for it in the long run. Majority of women, if they do not prepare, and husbands too, with their wives, then the chances of interventions are very high. And anytime you put an intervention in a pregnancy, the chances of C-section skyrocket, of complications. Anytime there's an intervention, there's a chance of complication. So that's just, and then it usually ends up in C-section. So if you talk to more, and I'm please don't, I don't want any women to watch this and feel guilty if you've had a C-section. From seeing and talking to many friends and family members, you can do everything you want to prepare and plan. That's another thing I want to tell you. If you're wanting to have a natural childbirth, it may not happen. So even if you do but if you do everything you can and it doesn't happen, that's okay. You can feel good. You can feel you did everything you could for your baby to have the best experience in childbirth that they could have, and start off life the best way they can, with all the best chances they could to have a good birth and a good start in life. Because there are a lot of benefits to natural childbirth. And if you look at my video, it's years and years. It's probably, I should say 7 years old because my son's 7. It's on the Bradley method. So, we did the Bradley method. That was one thing. So that would be step one. Step one should be husband and wife need to be on board together on this. The women are having the babies, okay? They're the ones doing the natural childbirth. But if you don't have a supportive spouse, or partner, it's going to be very difficult. That if this, like with me, I was very involved. I was just as much as my wife looking at ways to help my wife, give her all the tools she needed to provide her to help encourage her and support her to having a natural childbirth. Because we both felt we wanted to have that for our children if we could. Seeing how a lot of hospitals today, especially going to the Bradley method, finding out more and more of how the hospitals are designed in a way today to not give natural childbirth, but rather doctors are more, they're surgeons, okay? They don't want to sit around and wait for you to have a natural childbirth. They would rather push that thing out, cut that baby out and get to the next one, okay? And then there's less complications for their side. They can do surgery easier. They feel less reasons for lawsuits, less possibilities. You could have a lot more babies that way faster. Whatever reasons it's gotten like that, that is the case. If you go, when I went to the Bradley classes, they taught us all these things that like some of the hospitals around me, it was almost 50% C-section. So if you go to the hospital, 1 out of 2 people are going to get C-section, and you're like, wow. So once you realize that, then you have to understand, and that should help you to understand that you need to be proactive then before you have that baby to set yourself up for success, not for failure. So taking Bradley classes, that was number one thing that helped us, to just educate us and get us mentally prepared to know what to expect. Number 2, then we realized we wanted to have a doula. I wanted a doula, okay? My wife was happy about it, but I wanted someone there who's been through this. And our doula had a natural childbirth, and I would not be able to support my wife in that moment of trial when she is done and she wants to take drugs, okay? Take the drugs. And so I told myself, I don't think that I will be the right person to be saying, hey, you can do it. Go ahead, you can do it. Because she's going to look at me like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what I'm feeling. So I felt I don't want to set myself up for failure. I want to have someone in my corner, in our corner, who knows what my wife is going to be going through. And she can push her through and support her at her darkest hour. So we had that. But it was way more benefits than just that, what I found out. So we had our doula for a second natural childbirth as well, because we realized that was indispensable. To have a good doula, that was number 2. Number 3, we decided to have a midwife instead of a doctor. And we were thinking of doing a home birth with a tub, a birth tub and all that. So that's something that people can do if they're comfortable with that. But we decided when we researched that the hospital had natural birthing or alternative birthing rooms. So we thought, great, we can be in the hospital in case there's a complication, and you can bring your midwife in, and they leave you alone. They have nurses there to help too, but you're pretty much you're on your own in that room, and there's a tub and there's a bigger bed. You can both sleep in it at night. The baby can be in the room with you. So we saw that, and we were like, this is great. And actually, we didn't even have insurance. So we paid like $3,000 for that alternative birthing room. We paid, I think it was like $3,000 or $2,000 for the midwife. And I thought, insurance is what, $1,000, $2,000 a month. So all year I didn't even have insurance for whatever reasons. But we were able to have the whole thing for like $6,000 or less, and we were able to pay it off in payment. So that was great. We had the birth, and you're able to go see your midwife. You go see them, so that amount covers all the visits as well as the birth. And that's what we did. We went to Oak Park in Illinois. That's where our midwife was. So those are some things that we prepared ahead of time. The Bradley classes, we had a doula. We had prepared ourselves to have the midwife, so we would go see them, and they were very natural with us. So every time we went to go see the midwife, there's different midwives, and you see each one of them because you don't know which one's going to be on call when the baby comes. And they would check my wife. They would, they actually, we wanted to be all so natural. That's how, for my first baby, I was very paranoid and just wanting to do the best I could to do anything I could to make sure that if there was anything that went wrong with him, I would feel like I did everything I could to set him up right. That's a him now. Back then I didn't know, your baby. So we didn't even use the Doppler. Some people use the thing to hear the heartbeat, an electronic one. We asked them to use this thing. They put in like a stethoscope, and they put a thing on their head up to my wife's stomach, and they could hear the heartbeat like it would be like pushed against their head, their skull, and they could feel it. I did everything. I said anything we could do to be natural, I want to do it. So they were very supportive. Sometimes we would get pushed back, even with midwives. They still have they want to they got a business to run as well. But they're, I think, a lot more receptive on our desires than potentially the hospital, regular doctors could have been, because many doctors are not even skilled in giving natural births anymore. They are skilled in giving you the pitocin to get the baby going. Let's get this baby going. You're not, let's get it going. Once you add pitocin or anything, the chance of complications go way up. Okay, so if you go in a hospital just with a birth plan, and you're going in to go along with their agenda, they're going to push you in the path that they want you to go, rather than you having confidence to make some choices and to say, hey, this is what I would like. No, I don't want to do that. If you're not prepared, you're not going to be able to say that. Okay, so I'm just letting you know. Hopefully I already made that clear. So now with the doula, that was amazing. I mean, I would love to go in great detail, but I don't want to make this video to be too long. So with my son, my wife woke me up and she's like, hey, we're about to have the baby. So now looking back at the second one, if I would have known what I know now, I probably would have rested a little more. But we were excited. We were up. I think actually maybe with that baby, yeah, I think it was like during the day she started having some. I can't totally remember, but she started having contractions, and we were excited. We were like, oh, great, what do we do? Go to the hospital? So we called our doula, and she's like, no, don't worry. She was actually out. I'm pretty sure that was that, because I'm getting the two mixed up, but she's like, don't worry about it. I'll be there later. And we're like, what did we pay for you for? Like, we want you here now. But she's like, don't worry. This is your first child. It's going to be a long run. So that's the first thing. She helped us just realize, just relax. This is going to be a little while. And we were excited. We thought, no, the contractions are, 5 minutes apart, or they seem closer and closer. It's getting close. We better, where is she? We're getting nervous. And I was trying to do everything I could. My wife was, doing some of the things they taught her in the Bradley class of how to relax. And, I didn't, looking back, especially if it's your first child, you start having contractions, you need to rest. Get ready, because it could be a long night. So you want to have, and it could be a long next couple of days. When that baby comes, there's nobody around but you and your wife, okay? And she might be somewhat incapacitated. So men especially, you might want to rest a little bit, a couple hours, okay? Don't worry, just tell your wife, lay down, relax. Those first couple hours, they're going to be bad, but you can still relax, okay? So I may have rested a little, I'm not sure, but at a certain point, we called our doula. We were like, okay, please, can you come now? We just want you here. She's like, okay, fine, I can come there. So whatever she was doing, we called our midwife and let them know, and they're like, okay, don't worry, same thing, don't worry, relax, call me when you're coming to the hospital, let us know when you're here, and then I'll come to the hospital. Okay. Our doula came, and she started checking the contractions, and she had an app for it. So right off the bat, I felt like, wow, there's a professional here. That made me a lot more at ease that she was able to take over and say, and she's like, there's still a while to go here, guys. And we're like, really? My wife's like, really? So, like I said, it's a marathon, okay? Be prepared. So, at a certain point, it started to get a little hard. Now, here's where the doula stepped in, and my wife even will testify to this and tell anybody that she said her doula was like her drugs. Without her doula, she said her doula started giving her back massage through the contractions, and she said that was amazing. And she did it like towards the bottom of her pelvic, like the bottom of her back, like almost on her back or top of her butt area, and gave her these massages and was like, got her through those contractions before we went to the hospital. I'd say the mid contractions, midpoint. It started getting pretty hard for her. So I was very happy that she was there doing that. A couple of times I tried to take over to massage my wife, and my wife's like, can you step aside, please? And let the professional do it. So I realized I was trying to help my doula have some, get a little breaks in between those, but my wife could tell there was a difference. She knew, I was nothing compared to the doula. So I was very happy that I had her there to help through those contractions. So at a certain point, we would walk around. I think my wife took a shower to try to help. We had we warmed up a rice thing or something that helped with the contraction. So we did different things that we learned. At a certain point, our doula was like, okay, now it's time to go. So she even was able to help us to know, when to go to the hospital. Because here's the other thing: if you go too early, most likely they're gonna get that thing coming out. You're gonna go too early. That's just it, okay? If you don't have someone there to tell you, you're gonna think it's been a long time, and it's time to go. I gotta go. I've been having these contractions forever. Your doula will know. So we jumped in the car. We were riding out there. It's a little far. It's kind of far. So I'm getting kind of nervous because she's following us, and I'm in the car by myself, and I'm a little nervous, with my wife. I'm like, man, is she gonna have? She's really starting to have contractions now. They're getting closer. So that's when you could tell. And even then, you're 3/4 now. We get to the hospital. We get in. And they get her into triage, and they're checking her in, and we're calling our midwife. Our doula. We're like, oh no, midwife, you need to get here. And our midwife's they're probably not used to, we had a doula, we waited a long time, and they're not used to, I think hospitals they're used to people coming on, early, way early. So the nurses, everybody's all relaxed, and we're like, our doula was like, she's looking at me like she's getting ready, they better hurry up. And I'm telling the nurse, can you guys... And the nurses just taking their time. This is kind of like the second one as well. I'll do the first one now. I'll do another video for the second one. But it was the same both times. They're just all relaxed. And our midwife gets there, and she checks my wife's dilation. And she's like, whoa, you're already at 9 or something like 8.5. 7 or 8. She's like, oh man, she needs to get in there. They're telling the nurses are like, whoa, they're all freaking out. Okay, let's get her into the room. So everyone starts getting more into action, and we put her in a wheelchair. We get her in there. We lay her down. And since it was the first one, even though she was already 7 centimeters, it takes longer, for that to dilate. So it still was a couple hours. She did the birthing ball. We decided, my wife didn't want to do the tub because at a certain point, I think she got on the bed and she got comfortable. She was like, I'm not getting up. I think, everyone's different, but she liked that bed. That was the way, that was her comfortable spot, The good thing is we had choices, so it wasn't like a doctor's bed where they put you she could lay on the whole bed. She had nothing attached to her. They did give her a stent in case she needed something. No wires attached to her, nothing. She was free to walk around, free to lay down. And so it came to the moment of truth. I think her water broke again, and there might have been a little yellow in there, a little bit, and so they were a little worried. So here's where I'm happy too, because if it would have been the doctors and they would have said, oh, there's a little yellow in there, we need to get the baby out of complications, But our midwife was very smart. We actually got the most season 1, thank God, that night. You could tell she was tired too, so she seemed like she was kind of wanting to get out of there. So that was one thing that was a little bit bothering to me, but at least, she understood what the process was. So we saw that. My midwife was like, don't worry, but she told my wife, we need to, let me check you to make sure that you're, and she said, well, she's at 9.5 or 9. She's like, I can sweep the membranes to make her 10 and she can start pushing. And so my wife, we didn't want to do anything abnormal, but at that point my wife was like, I want to start pushing. I need to be done. And we're like, okay, fine. And that's what I'm saying. Everything can change, depending on, you have call audibles, especially we saw the meconiums in their little yellow. So I thought, well, if he could be distressed, we better get them going out before they try to come in and do some intervention. So I was like, yeah, let's do what you have to do. She did that. Whatever she did, she was at 10 and she was ready to go. So even that our midwife was able to do that, that was great. My wife was on the bed. They started pushing. And you would think once you start pushing, that's great. That was another like 3 hours because that was the first baby. So that thing, everything is just, not broken, not everything's intact, all the muscles. So it's like you gotta get through that. And even then, my wife said that wasn't too bad pushing that through. Getting to that last step. And in the Bradley class, you'll learn something called the Ring of Fire. Okay, that's the end. That's usually when the women want drugs, when they're like, I can't take it anymore. But that's when it's pretty much done. Okay, just know that when you get to the Ring of Fire, that's when you can't take anymore, but you're done. You're pretty much done. That's it. You can't at that point. You can't get drugs because the baby's already on the way out. So everything was bearable to my wife. It was just that last part, which at that last part anyways, there's no turning back at that point. If you went natural, you're going natural. If you got the drug before that, it's already too late to go natural. So if you can make it to that point, just know you're at the point of no return. And I don't know what that's like. My wife, maybe she'll do the second one with me. She can tell you, but that was the point of no return. And she wanted drugs at that point. And the midwife's like, look at me. She's like, don't listen to anybody else. She's like, the baby's coming out right now, okay? She's like, just do what I tell you. So the midwife just got her honed in, and we had a sheet she was holding. My doula got her to where she had something she was able to pull on it. I forget what it's called, but they hooked her up with some more tools to help her. And I was right there with my wife at her head, and I didn't want to look, I was afraid, I don't want to see something that's going to change my whole perspective of my wife. But I decided I want to, something happened where they're like, there's his hair or something. And I looked down and I was locked in like a deer in headlights. And I felt like I was in a different realm. It was unreal. I felt like I was in a dream, and all this euphoria and just watching my baby being born. And I was just like, wow, my wife was, pushing. That would probably be the hardest part I say. And I don't get into detail about that. And it doesn't last very long, but that last part where the baby's coming out, my wife was, and I think at that point she was so I don't know if you want to say, she was just in another realm herself. So in that sense, I don't even know what she was feeling or what, but she was just so focused on she was like, get him out. And at a certain point, the head was coming, and she's like, can you just pull him out? And my midwife was like, just push, just focus. She's like, don't look at. And so, a certain amount, push, and, at a certain point, baby pops out. Okay, they got him out, and that was great. There was one point where they had the Doppler, and there was some distress, so that's when she's like, you need to push him out now. We need to get him out, So thank God he came, everything worked out. Now, here's one part, too, is I wanted to wait on the cord, cutting the cord. My midwife waited a little bit, but here's one thing I would recommend. Even though you're so out of it, I was so happy and elated, and just, my son, they had to suck his lungs because they did say that there was a little bit of meconium in his lungs. So thank God that they just sucked his lungs, and they said he was okay. Right to my wife, she was able to nurse right away. She had sensation in her body because she didn't get the drug. So because of that, she was able to nurse right away. Nobody took my baby from me. They wiped him down a little, and we even said we don't want him wiped down that much. We just want to let his skin take all the stuff in. Whatever it was, whatever we learned, we thought whatever best we did it. Now she wanted me to cut the cord. I wanted to wait. So that's one thing. I wish I would have waited longer on cutting the cord, but we did that. And then it seemed like she pulled the placenta sac out. That was another thing. I don't know if she was just wanting it in a rush. So, which actually later, I don't know if that caused a complication or not. So eventually the placenta came out. It looked like it was intact, so that was good. And that was great, and so she was able to have the baby, nurse the baby right away. Everything was checked. Everyone says she seemed good. So at a certain point, nurses checked. The midwife decided she could leave. The doula thought she was all good. She left, and we were alone. So, I'm not going to end it there because something happened that it was unexpected. And this is why I'm happy we were in the hospital. They left us alone, and my wife couldn't get up. So I had that baby, and I was like, okay, because part of our birth plan was we don't want them to take the baby. We want to take care of this baby. I don't want no one to touch my baby. I don't want them to put nothing in them. No, we didn't want no Vaseline on the no nothing on their eyes. I don't want nothing, no vaccines, nothing. I just want him, let my baby alone. We'll nurse him so he can get the vitamin K through the milk. Because we're nursing, he can get the antibodies for anything he needs. Why he won't get any disease. My wife has, she's already had certain things. So because he's having the milk, he's okay. He's safe. He's fine. We don't need anything. Just leave us alone unless something happens. Okay, that's how I wanted to be. But they really left me alone. So I'm glad they respected it. I was like, what do I do with this baby? I don't even know. I was scared to wipe my baby's butt. Even though it was only the first couple poops are like this black stuff, so it's not even like real poops yet. So that was good. I was like, how do I change his diaper when he pees? I swallowed him, and I didn't know how to swallow that good. So if you know how to swallow, that helps the baby feel like in the womb, and they can sleep better. So I would swallow him, and I would lay down. Like 10 minutes later, he got out of the swallow, and I'd get up, swallow him. Half an hour, we lay down. A nurse comes in, swallow him, and at that point, though, my wife's like, it was maybe about I wanted to get some rest. Both of us did. So I was kind of fumbling along for the first hour. And then my wife's like, I feel like I'm bleeding, like, still. And I'm like, really? So she had a pad, and we had the nurse come in, they looked, and like, wow, this thing is full. So I don't know if because they pulled that out or whatever. My wife does have fibroids too in her uterus, so that could have been whatever it was. Is she started to she started to have bleeding, whatever. I can't remember what that's called. So the nurse was like, okay, we changed. They had like a pad thing. They had her. They changed it. She left. She came back 10 minutes later, and that thing was filled again. And my wife's like, I don't feel so good. Like, she started having excessive bleeding, and we were like, whoa, this is kind of scary now. So we started to pray, and the nurse came back in. She said, let's go to the bathroom. Let's try to pass some blood clots. So she sat on the toilet, and my wife, plastic a big clot, and we're like, whoa, okay. So she's like, that should be better. So we started walking her to her bed, and she's like, no, I gotta go back, I think. And she went back. She went again, and she was bleeding in another blood clot, and then all of a sudden she faints in my arms, and she's just like, and she, like, all her weight was on me, and I'm holding her on the toilet. I felt so bad because I don't know if she's hurt. Like, she just had a baby, and actually we didn't have them cut no PZ, I had nothing, but she had a little tearing. They sewed that up. That was it. So I was worried, like, I don't know what kind of pain she's in, but I'm trying to hold her, and she's kind of on the toilet, and so then once she came to, she's like, what's going on? She's like, she heard like echoes, and like I think she had too much blood loss. So then the nurse, I looked at her that time, and she looked worried at that point. I'm like, oh, this something. She looks worried. So I was like, do you want to get the wheelchair? She's like, yeah. So she went and got a wheelchair. We put my wife in a wheelchair this time, got her to the bed, and then she went and got a doctor, and the doctor came in, and she was like, well, I'm going to give you some pitocin to help your uterus start to contract back down, because my wife was having, I forget what it is. It's, if you look it up, it's common for women to have bleed. Their uterus is still bleeding and it doesn't stop. So either the pitocin, she said, has to work, or I have to manually go in there and massage your uterus to get it to start going back down and stop the bleeding. And we're like, she walks out, and that's the last we heard from her. And we're like, my wife's like, please, can you pray for me? She's like, I don't want any. She was, in that point, she was done. She didn't want nothing else coming in or out. And she was just, and I could understand it totally. So I started praying, like, please, Lord, So we're praying, and they're giving me a drip of pitocin now, a bag of it. And my son's already born, so at that point I'm like, I don't care. Do whatever you have to do. He's out. Help my wife. Even though we didn't know, we were worried maybe it could be in the breast milk, but at that point we're like, do what you got to do, because she did not want anything like that going on outside of, hopefully that would stop the bleeding. So maybe a half hour, they came in, they checked, the bleeding was going down. Eventually, thank God, everything was good, and that was fine. So that was that, and they left us alone again. My wife was getting some sleep, and for the next 2 days I was not sleeping, because every time I got to try to sleep, my baby would wake up. I'd go help him. Then my baby would go to sleep, and I go to sleep. Then a nurse would come in and help for my wife. And that went on all through the night. And then in the morning, when I wanted some sleep, all the people started calling you to see how the baby was, and you start calling friends and family. So that was the next 2 nights. Now my second one was a little different. I'll tell you about that. But the first one, I was so paranoid. I didn't want no one touching my baby. So in that point, I did everything, and I didn't sleep for 2.5 days. So then they moved to another room, and in that room, Yeah, it was like not as comfortable. It was just, it was terrible. So that was bad. But I'll stop there. That was our number one. My son, he's 7 now. I can tell you more about other things that have gone on with that, but for now, we were able to have the natural childbirth, and I was so happy for my wife. I was so proud of her. She was so proud of herself, and we were so happy we were able to do that for my son. That he was able to nurse. They were able to have the chemicals that a woman has and experience when they give natural childbirth, that gives a connection and a bond. Not saying if you don't, that's not there. I don't really know. All I know is we wanted to do it this way, and we were able to do it, but that's only because we prepared, we planned, and we were able to accomplish that and be successful, only because, like I said, we prepared for like a marathon. So that's what I want to tell you. If you're looking into having a natural childbirth, hopefully this is helpful to you. This give you some some tips or some help. Thanks for tuning in. Support the channel if you can in any way. Of course, that always helps. I hope you have a blessed week. Thanks for tuning in. Ben Samuelak TV. See you next time. Bye.